Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Caffeine. I have to brush my teeth after this. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We're going back to that horrible world known as the JRC. But before we do, a small rant, yes, on JD versus AH, because the media kind of live like with the royal soap opera, continues to push an already decided case in my face over a year on. So Netflix is adopting a documentary that was done in the UK of an individual who has proudly stated he didn't even watch the trial, but has determined in his almighty wisdom that it was decided on TikTok. So now all the idiots are coming out of the woodwork saying, oh, finally, her perspective. Her perspective? We've literally, in the media, had nothing but her perspective from day one. What rock did you just crawl out from under? No, seriously, what rock? Mainstream media from day one has been on her side and is still on her side. Or have you just completely ignored smear campaigns? Oh, he passed out in his hotel from an overdose and now he's dead. Well, that is a very, very ridiculously good-looking reanimated corpse, I must say. Kudos to the coroner. Or the morgue worker. Whatever. It's stupid, folks. First off, I have never seen anything quite like this. When you're making documentary after documentary after a case that is literally just a little bit over a year old. A lot of these true crime documentaries don't tend to come out until years, literal years after the fact. Even with the OJ trial, and if you were alive during the OJ trial, you would know. That was basically a 3-ring circus spectacle. The JD versus AH case didn't turn into a spectacle until Miss Thing took the stand. The OJ trial was the 3-ring circus and a unicorn. Okay? I know, I was alive. I watched it with the rest of humanity. I have distinct memories of the literal slow Bronco car chase down the streets of LA burned behind my retinas, okay? And still, documentaries were not done about that case until a good several years afterwards. I don't understand this ridiculousness. Or this absolute insistence that the media was somehow on his side. The media was never on his side. Never, ever. Never, ever. That op-ed went out and everybody and their brother took her side, in spite of the fact that the evidence had not come to the table yet. This is what I'm talking about with our current society. This knee-jerk reaction to accusations. This is where I call out you neurotypicals on your own weirdness. Someone's word is enough to cancel someone's entire life. Y'all don't need facts. You don't need evidence. You don't need to hear the person's other side of the story before you go out with pitchforks and torches. It's insane to me. It's absolutely bonkers. Yet somehow I, the autistic who demands evidence, facts, I'm the weird one? Those of us who are, because the newest one is Lizzo, right? Lizzo getting called out by some dancers. And it's almost the exact same thing with the Manson case, but there's numbers of accusers, so it just has to be true. It's still he said, she said. Or in this case, she said, she said. Okay? You can have enough accusers to line the globe 3 times. It doesn't make it true. Okay? Doesn't make it true. Especially not in these days, where people have certain motivations, if you know what I mean. Nobody would lie about this. What would be their motives? Again, see. There's plenty of motivation. It comes in the color green. Where am I going with this rant? I find it bizarre that we've had now, what is this? Documentary number 3. 3 of them, folks. Even my sorry ass, excuse me for the cursing, has managed to end up in one of them for a brief 2 seconds. And all this, but it was decided on social media. It was decided on evidence, Karen. The world watched her lie. The world watched her lie. And I think the reason why they're doing these documentaries and all of this garbage is, once again, we're trying to relitigate a case that's already been litigated. It's done. It's over with. But the media can't seem to handle that they do not have control of this narrative anymore. And quite frankly, I think it scares them to death that nobody's just willing to simply take their word on things anymore. At least not those of us who are actually thinking individuals with 2 brain cells to rub together. But it also proves that the general masses will knee-jerk react to everything. They don't need evidence. They don't need facts. They don't need the other side of the story. That person is guilty because someone pointed the finger. It's the Salem witch trials and the witch trials, period, all over again. The reason why our court systems and laws and police, why all of that was put into place, is highly influenced by the events of history. And now we are going backwards. It's not progress, it's regression. It's regression. You want to know the difference between the survivors at the JRC and people like AH and people who just accuse with no evidence and decide to take their case to social media? The JRC survivors' receipts have receipts. These people have none. They are doing their trials by way and means of a popularity contest. It has all the vitriol and insanity of a high school rumor. And it's disturbing the hell out of me. This willingness to condemn a complete and utter stranger who you do not know, whom you've never met, on simply the word of others. Now, most autistics were painted as naive, and we are, for a time, until the world essentially beats it out of us. After that time period, we tend to not be ones who simply just knee-jerk react to everything. Because we know people lie. We know people manipulate. People obscure things. People try to hide things. People use the media as both a shield and a bludgeon to go after their enemies. We know this because it's been done to us. I don't care who you are, even if you're that piece of human scum, Dan Wooten. Accusations aren't facts. You can paint whatever picture you want to, but until I see evidence on the table, all you have is just words. The media wants you to live in a world where only words matter. That's scary. All right, folks, to the disclaimers. Sorry about the rant and the ramble. In the description box, you're going to find a link to the article that the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center doesn't want you to read. It's written by NeuroClastic, a small non-for-profit started by autistics for autistics, wherein they interviewed and surveyed over 900 ABA professionals in regards to the JRC's so-called behavior modification program. Matter of fact, the JRC doesn't want you to read this article so much. They have threatened NeuroClastic with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. So you know the drill. Please read that article and share it on all your social media. Also included is NeuroClastic's public statement regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to their GoFundMe. We are crowdfunding in case the JRC actually sees through with their threat. Also in there, the Ozarks' first article in regards to the Agape boarding school, now known as Stone for Help boarding school situation, a so-called Christian-themed boarding school based out of Stockton, Missouri that takes in so-called troubled male teens, that has impending over 21 civil lawsuits, claims, and allegations leveled against it, all which have been substantiated by the Missouri Department of Social Services, and they include the following: sodomy, rape, sexual assault, child abuse, psychological and emotional abuse, child trafficking, starvation, and that's just for starters. You have one former staff member arrested by the FBI, another a doctor still on the premises with full access to the boys upon multiple, again, substantiated claims of sodomy, rape, and sexual assault of the boys there. You have an attorney general too busy chasing after drag queens and trying and failing to defund public libraries to actually do his damn job. And you got a governor off his nut send help to the last few Missourians who are still stuck here with two brain cells to rub together because we are too broke to get the hell out of Dodge. Send help. Read that article. Share it on all your social media. We got the other pertinent links to the Stop the Shocks campaign, including the link to the New England Law Review in regards to the BRI versus Leonard. Remember, BRI, or the Behavioral Research Institute, is what the JRC used to be referred as before they changed the name to their center to the insane judge who gave them their godforsaken freaking consent decree back in the 80s. So we're going to go through that. I'm going to let you know as a trigger warning in advance that this particular law review is going to be heavily slanted with outdated ideas, and I will probably have 5 million cows while reading it to you all. Hoya's massive archive on the subject, Jennifer Masumba's behavioral sheet of shockable offenses, a clip out of the 7-hour ordeal undergone by Andre McCollins back in 2002, the templates, and the ever-present self-explanatory change.org shut the Judge Rotenberg Center down petition. When we discuss the JRC, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of people with disabilities being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, folks, please use your headphones, all right? This channel is marked not for children for a reason. We use profanity on occasion and speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger and they are watching this, very obviously parental supervision is advised, all right? Now, my hand is like this because we all know I use these to stem. This is how done I am with the stupid, folks. I've been a stemming freaking fool all morning because idiots are willing to just read headlines and not do their own homework. I'm done with humanity. Just like done. Excuse me while I do this. Alright, back to where we left off last video. In July 1985, a student at the BRI facility died while being administered white noise aversive therapy. Although an autopsy did not specifically indicate the student's death was caused by aversive therapy, the Massachusetts Office of Children, OFC, conducted its own investigation into the conditions of the BRI. Oh, Jesus Christ. So let me guess. But But it didn't say it was because of the helmet. You have a person face down on a mat with a white noise helmet on their face who died of asphyxiation. Tell me, Karen, are we really going to play with semantics here? Really? It wasn't their fault. They just tied him face down to a mattress. They didn't know what was going to happen. When a student dies in a school, just know that an autopsy, as well as an investigation, is going to be conducted, period, whether the school is at fault or not. It is not normal for a student to be dying inside their schools. At least it didn't used to be. How is that even a debate? Come on, Comet. You're long overdue. Just say, Team Comet hit the Earth with a vengeance. As a result of this investigation, OFC concluded that BRI's use of Aversives constituted abuse of the students and it was a threat to life, health, and safety of students who experienced this type of treatment. You're damn right it is, Karen. When a student has bruises all over their body, scabs, sores where hands have been digging in, what the hell do you call it? But it's the only thing that works, right? Right. It's okay to beat the disability out of someone. I hate to tell you, but no matter how much abuse or torture you throw on a person, you can't beat or torture the disability out of us, okay? Consequently, OFC issued a notice to show cause why the license of BRI should not be revoked and prohibited further use of aversive therapy at BRI's group homes in Massachusetts. Rightfully so. Rightfully so. I am not sorry. Their actions caused a student to die. Common sense will tell you if you strap someone face down on a mattress, you're already at risk for asphyxiation. You put a noise-canceling helmet on that while the student is struggling, what do you think is going to happen? Why are we even having to have this conversation? You don't need to be an expert or having worked in the field to know that how that can end. When BRI and parents of the students could not receive relief from this order by way of administrative hearing granted by OFC, the parents of one of the students who filed a petition to the probate and family court seeking guardianship and substituted judgment orders, because that's worked so well. Thank you, parents, for ripping the rights of other parents out of their hands, like with Cheryl McCollins, where they continued to shock her son even when she revoked consent. Thanks for that. Truly. Thank you. The parents sought to return their daughter to the treatment program that had been in effect prior to the OSC order, as her behavior had again become self-mutilating. Who's surprised? Let me guess. But if she was being tortured, she wouldn't be self-mutilating again. Or, and go with me here, I know it's crazy talk, you didn't deal with the problem that was causing the issue in the first place. So predictably, when the torture was no longer in place, it came back and became worse, because that's what happens when you don't deal with the actual trigger that's causing the problem. Logic. Try it sometime. The court, with the agreement of all parties, including OFC, who had intervened in the case, issued a temporary guardianship and substituted judgment determination, returning the student to her previous treatment program, which included physical aversives. Jesus Christ. So your idea is not to, this obviously didn't work. The behaviors are back. Let's put her back in so they can torture them out of her again. The whole concept, the idea behind this treatment is that it will eventually be faded off, right? If you're not dealing with the root cause, the issues don't magically just disappear when you remove the threat of retaliation. They remain, now compounded with trauma, which means they're going to be worse than they were ever previously, and they may have now have more aggressions, new behaviors that they never had previously, before being tortured. Upon resumption of this treatment program devised for the student, she made progress in eliminating her self-destructive and antisocial behavior, and quality of her life improved. I don't understand this. These idiots who continue to say that, but their lives are better now. How in the name of God can you sit there and tell me with a straight face and a full chest that torture means their life has improved? I can tell you how they do it, folks. If we are acting in a means that makes them feel satisfied with our conduct, that's their idea of our lives improved. They don't care if we think our lives have improved. They don't care if our actual quality of life has actually improved. All they care about is that we're not making trouble for them. That's it. That's it. Nobody says life is improved by means of torture, unless they got something to gain from it. That's just a fact. But our violence against them means their violence against themselves started. Again, I will go back to the elephant in the room. For those of us who've had some form of self-harm, I'm not going to sit there and sugarcoat it for you and tell you it's a wonderful thing that should be left alone. We can kill ourselves. I'm not going to sugarcoat it or tell Dr. Matthew Israel that he's wrong on that count. But is the answer really to take the abusing myself away from me to have others abuse me instead sound like this is a coherent and logical step forward to an improved life? Maybe. To a psychopath. The idea should be to find out what the trigger is and deal with it in a way that does not require violence. This should be self-evident. I mean, I know this was the 80s, and when I talk about the treatment and mental health treatment back in the day being backwards, I'm barely skimming the very top here. But the fact that we live in 2023 and there are people who still have this mentality is absolutely mind-blowing. That you have students willing to defend this insanity makes it even worse. People who are dedicated enough to self-harm, if you remove their ability to self-harm, will find a means and a way to do it in other ways. In particular, if you are a facility that engages in aversive therapies, and they know by acting up, you are going to harm them, and this is their issue, self-aggressive, aggressive against oneself's behavior, what makes you think they won't engage in self-abuse by proxy? Think on it. What we're gaining from this here, folks, is it may sound like we've come a long way since the 80s in this particular student's point of view, but we actually haven't. There's a lot of themes in here that many people still tote and are drawn out, dusted off, and thrown on TV every single April. There's a reason why out there in the neurodiverse community, it's literally a thing every April of Brace Yourself Autism Awareness Month is coming. Because some of the same outdated garbage is still being toted every year so that you will divvy up your wallets to fill Autism Speaks $1 billion coffers. They're out of control. We have to control them. We have to remove every single sense of self and self-autonomy whatsoever so that we can what? Magically turn us into neurotypicals? No thanks, Karen. You all have your own weirdness. That the only reason why it is considered normal is that there is a consensus among the masses that it is. If you were, let me give you an example before we close out, and I've used this before. Let's take celebrity worship. Pretty mainstream thing, right? And separate it. Say, for an example, instead of it's a neurotypical, it's an autistic. And their hyperfixation happens to be on one particular celebrity. And that particular person, because of their hyperfixation on that particular celebrity, believes that they should be entitled to every single detail of that person's private life. Guess what would happen to that particular individual? Yeah. It would be considered a behavior, right? Hyperfixation to the point of harm, right? Yeah. It would be put in their permanent record and follow them for the rest of their lives. It would be considered disturbing, obsessive behavior, right? Something that needs therapy and various kinds of treatments. Now, let's put that in the context of the real world, because that person, that made-up scenario I just came out with, is not a made-up scenario. It's what neurotypicals do every single day, every time they pick up a tabloid, every time they are Google obsessively searching for a particular celebrity, every time they feel like they get to have an opinion on the personal relationships of celebrities, strangers that they've never met, nobody panics. Nobody points out that the behavior is disturbing. Nobody says a word. Because the general consensus is this is such a widespread behavior that by some weird determination, it is considered normal and therefore acceptable behavior. But when you see what I just did and you twist it around, you can see that very bizarre, very disturbing behavior for what it is. So no, I don't want to magically be turned into a neurotypical so that I will meet the consensus's idea of what it is I should be. I don't care what the world thinks I should be. I haven't since sophomore high school. I gave that up a long time ago. I will on occasion don the mask that I have dubbed on this channel the doll. But there's a particular public appearance or anything that's within my advocacy work that I have to do. Granted, I do that, yes. The mask can also act as a shield from others. and their prying and their obsession and their weirdness and their needing to touch you and hold you up as though you're a god because you're autistic with a full-time job. Please don't get me started. See where I'm going with here, right? You are talking about life improved, not for us, but for you, because we are no longer disturbing the herd, as it were. We're no longer the odd one out that somehow makes you feel better. This is the mentality that is still within the medical model. To not just remove the harmful things that is a part of the diagnosis, and there are harmful things. You think I enjoyed slamming my head down, my brush full force into my head repeatedly and bleeding all over the place as a child? You think I enjoyed that? No. But even taking away the things that makes us the odd ones out that harms absolutely no one. Or my hyperfixation happens to be on dead civilizations over 2,000 years old. Oh, you're too obsessed. You need to go out in society. Have you seen society? Sorry to put it that bluntly, but as the great, my hero, my spirit animal, the late great Groucho Marx once said, "Why should I care about prosperity? What's prosperity ever done for me?" I have a distinct feeling I'm probably going to be harping on this subject without end over and over as we go through these particular series of videos here on this particular law piece. And I'm going to continue to point out the things that are still going on, that still cling to the treatment programs and organizations throughout the world, not just the JRC. And we're going to close on that, folks. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few that we do tend to get removed from time to time. So please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe. Don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time. And as always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea hope you have a good one. Pray for me. It's like almost 100, and it's like 10:24 a.m. in the morning. Bye-bye, everyone.